Hi, Ultimate Wellness Tribe. Today I'm joined by Shawn Bearden, CEO and co-founder of NewMind Technologies. With a background in software engineering and passion to neuroscience, Shawn is leading the way in transforming mental health care through accessible, tech-driven brain optimization. NewMind offers clinicians and wellness practitioners advanced neurofeedback system with brain mapping, personalized protocols, and metabolic support to enhance mental health and cognitive performance. Hi, Shawn. Thank you for joining me today. I have a few questions for you.
Hi, Julia. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
First of all, I am thrilled to have NewMind Technologies as a sponsor at our highly anticipated Ultimate Wellness Conference, returning to the iconic Faena Forum in Miami Beach on September 26th through 28th. This is going to be a transformative wellness weekend, and we feature world-class experts in biohacking and longevity, cutting-edge technologies, and of course, immersive experiences. So please join us. You can get your ticket at ultimatewellness.miami/forum. We are happy to have you with us. I believe that our attendees, they can explore technology at the expo, and you're going to provide a lot of information, and they can try themselves this neurofeedback. But now let's start with big picture, and I wanted to know what was the core mission behind launching NewMind Technologies, and how has this evolved as mental health tech continues to advance. So what inspired you at first and how it changed maybe over time? Maybe you changed technology or advanced technology or adjusted your business model. Now you have a very interesting business model. We are going to discuss this later, how it all started.
It all started with a way to find a process of reducing suffering through the technology of neurofeedback. We also wanted to make this an easy-to-use system, something that clinicians and providers could easily understand and implement to help their clients improve their lives without being over complex, but still being very advanced and staying advanced in the technology as well.
And your system built around QEEG-based brain mapping and functional neurofeedback. Can you please walk us through how this technology identifies dysregulations in the brain and how training actually helps restore optimal function? Many people have heard about neurofeedback, many people experienced it before in clinics, and now it's more accessible through practitioners. And what is QEEG-based brain mapping? Why it's so important to incorporate mapping before starting neurofeedback, and all details? Tell us more.
Sure, great question, Julia. So imagine being able to look at a map of the brain and seeing areas that are dysregulated. That's what QEEG does. We're able to read EEG, your brain waves, and actually see areas that are dysregulated, and you're able to train these areas back into a normal state. That's why it's so important to do the QEEG, the brain map, so you actually can see where you start and where you end up after doing the neurofeedback training. Neurofeedback is a way of training these brain waves, getting them back into a state by practicing holding your brain in a specific state by having it feed itself back to itself. And that way you get a reward as you're able to hold your brain into these specific states. Doing that 2 or 3 times a week for 20 or 30 sessions, you begin to learn how to hold your brain in that state. And then you can use the QEEG to do a post-brain map to see how your brain is actually changing in its normal state. That's why it's important to use the QEEG brain mapping. We've also taken it a step further and coined the phrase functional neurofeedback. We don't look at just the brain in isolation because it is connected to a body, and everything kind of works in concert together. So we look at metabolics, we look at social interaction, we look at cognitive emotional function, and also cognitive performance.
How do you look at these areas? For example, you said metabolic function. How do you look at metabolic function? What is the tools?
Sure. For metabolic physiology assessments, they are self-assessment questionnaires where they rate symptoms based on severity and frequency. And then we have statistically normed this. So there's statistically validated instruments for these assessments. They're not just like a checklist you go down. And we're able to see, based on probability, metabolic areas that are affected.
So metabolic assessment done through questions. It's history taking, and you don't incorporate any lab test.
Correct. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
so
see.
those metabolic areas that you're struggling with could be the root cause of some of the symptoms you're having, but
Mm-hmm.
they could actually impede and slow down the progress of neurofeedback.
And so what kinds of mental health conditions or cognitive changes have shown the most promise with NewMind's protocols? And are there any maybe surprising success stories or patterns you have seen in the data? Uh, yeah, what it helps for?
Sure. It is really helpful for anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
depression,
Mm-hmm.
focus is a really big one, and also trauma. It is really big on integrating trauma, working with PTSD, for example. And so those are areas, even some with autism, some success rates there.
I have
So,
heard that it's good for autistic kids, and it in
mhm.
general improve cognitive abilities for anyone, and especially for kids, because probably their brain still is more uh, neuroplasticity, has more ability to regrow and change neuron pathways. However, I know that science has changed, and over time, we now know that brain changes until the end of our life, because previously it used to be believed that only until some certain age we have this neuroplasticity and we can create new neuron pathways. But now we know that it's possible at any age. Is it correct? What do you
That's right.
think?
It's never too late. It's never too late to start. Your
Yeah.
brain never stops learning.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, and you also mentioned that there is some reward system inside this neurofeedback session. Once our brain learns how to maintain some certain state, I guess this state measured by brain waves. And once it's at some brain waves which we want to set up, then you reward. And what is the reward?
It's like operative conditioning. And
Mm-hmm.
so, for example, as you watch a documentary or a movie, we're able to actually fade the screen from dark to light. So as you're
Mm,
able to get your brain waves into the specific state, you can see the screen as normal. As you fall out of this state, the screen progressively gets darker and darker the further outside of that state you get. So your brain gets this feedback and kind of has
mm,
a conversation with the computer, if you
mm,
will, and it starts to subconsciously learn how to keep the screen on. If we're doing an eyes closed training, there's tones as the sound can get louder or the tone gets clearer,
mm,
um, which is the same concept. So it's a reward system for your brain to hold it in this state. And this, once you kind of learn to do that, they're permanent. You don't have much backsliding.
mm.
It sticks with you.
Yeah, actually, it was my question. Do you perform this training with closed eyes or open eyes? It's interesting.
Sure.
Uh, so it's possible both. And who choose how to do it? You choose or patient choose?
Typically, the clinician chooses. It also
Clinician.
depends on the type of training you're doing. Most of it is done with eyes open, kind of
Mm-hmm.
the standard protocols. If you're doing a neuro meditation protocol, which we have built into the system, you typically do that with eyes closed while you're meditating. Also, there's
Mm-hmm.
a alpha theta. It's a altered state protocol. And so you do that with eyes closed and you get into these really altered states, almost similar to a psychedelic experience, but
Mm.
without actually doing psychedelics.
With these brain waves, there are alpha, beta, gamma, theta. It's not like some of them better, some of them not so good. It's just, it always changes, even though we sometimes want to achieve some specific brain wave, some state and flow state, probably possible when we are more like in beta, gamma, theta. Theta is uh, deep meditative state, as far as I remember. But it's not like some of them good or bad. They always change. Yes?
Yes, absolutely. And they're all highly connected to one another. So as one changes, it kind of pushes and pulls the other ones as well. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you need them all. They all work together
Yeah.
in this kind of symphony. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're constantly kind of balancing those different ways. So yeah, you can be in a little bit of a state, but there's not a particularly bad state
Mm-hmm.
or bad frequency band.
Mm-hmm. And from your experience, how long the brain can be in their gamma or theta state?
So like during a session, you typically it's about 30 minutes
Mm-hmm.
and you do that 2 or 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
And
Uh,
that's enough to kind of teach your brain how to hold these different states and make that permanent.
Yeah, I guess it improves ability to meditate because I know that with technologies we can achieve meditative state effortlessly, faster, and sometimes many years of meditation they give results. But also, if we train our brain with some technology, we can achieve this ability to concentrate, focus, and to tune into meditative state much faster.
That's right. You can also tell if you're actually meditating. You do it with the neurofeedback device that we have.
Mm.
You're actually seeing your brain waves in real time, and we're
Mhm.
able to tell the state of those different brain waves. And so you see the raw EEG, you're seeing that in real time, and you're actually seeing the different brain waves, how they're responding and what state you're in. So it's all done with this single device and system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. So we can sit, meditate, and at the same time do neurofeedback, and it will measure waves. I
Exactly.
Okay, let's come back to business model. So NewMind offers clinicians and coaches a full ecosystem from in-clinic tools at home guided training and how your business model support this scalability while ensuring quality and personalized care. So we want to maintain this quality and personalized approach, and at the same time it's really important for businesses, for your business, for coaches to be able to scale their business actually and have more patients. I know that you have some dashboard where coach can connect many clients and see their results at real time, which is really very convenient, and they don't need to wait until receiving results of neurofeedback. So is it correct that the patient can be at home and the coach can see real brain waves and how the session actually performs?
That's right. There's a real-time dashboard that clinicians or coaches can monitor in real time. And so they can see them all at once, really at a glance. We have people with well over 100 home trainers actively training, and they'll
Mhm.
watch the dashboard and they're able to monitor, even message them or reach out to them directly through the
Mm.
software if they're running into a problem. So we make it really easy to scale. With home training, you can grow your office without growing your office space, which is really important. You don't have to create another station. You don't have to hire more people, which
Mhm.
is a paid benefit. And it's the fact that the clients can do this sessions, do this therapy from the comfort of their own home. They don't have to drive in 2 or 3 times a week. They can do it at the time that works best for them. And so that's really a really big convenience for the client and for the clinician, and also helps with compliance. It's a lot easier for them to find that space in their home 2 or 3 times a week, or really anywhere they are with this portable system. And
Mm.
that makes it scalable for the client, the clinician. That allows the clinician to scale out without having to have schedule bandwidth to
Mhm.
handle the extra clients every week. So it's really unlimited in how much you can grow and scale the business without having the physical space to do it.
Yeah,
Um,
but at the same time, if a patient wants to perform session at some certain time, but let's imagine coach or practitioner doesn't want or cannot be at this specific time watching the dashboard, it's not absolutely necessarily, it's not like the patient needs supervision all time. They can perform session at any time, and then depending on situation, depending on this specific case, a coach can or watch this in real time, or it just keeps data inside the system, and then they can just look through the history, how it was,
That's right.
right?
That's right, Julia. They don't have to be there. They're not required to monitor them. It's a nice option to have. So if there's someone that you want to particularly monitor, you can, or if you just want to poke in, check in and see what's going on during the day, you can get a live view of who's training at that time. But no, someone can be completely independent on their own, train when they want, and those results are instantly available to the clinician in their platform. And so they can check in, see someone who trained the day before or later in the day or whatever, they can actually go back and see the data there in the system. It's saved for them automatically.
Yeah, this remote coaching really gives a lot of opportunities for scaling the business. However, as far as I understand, it's important to meet at least first time to perform QEEG-based mapping and set up these health goals for your brain optimization. Because as with any biohack, we know that it's important to measure at the beginning. It's a good starting point. It helps coach and patient to be more responsible towards their health and towards these health goals. And then after some number of sessions, it's probably important also to assess how it goes, what improvements they have, and is it absolutely necessarily to meet first time in person to perform this QEEG mapping?
Typically, we recommend it just so you
Mm-hmm.
can build the relationship and really get the full assessment on the client, including the QEEG. And then once they go through a round of training,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's good to have them come in, or you can do a remote telehealth assessment. There's
Mm-hmm.
a way that you can actually send them equipment to do the QEEG from home if they wanted to. But it's nice to have them come in at least the first time so you can meet them, and then potentially later to check their progress. Progress is really important, we
Mm-hmm.
believe, to track. And so we have pre and post reports, comparative reports on all the assessments we mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
and also a customized symptom tracker that's built off of the results of the cognitive emotional function assessments. A lot of times clients kind of habituate and they forget, they ease into these lesser symptoms and they forget how intense they were when they
Mm-hmm.
first started. And so we find it really important to show a pre and post comparison of these reports. So you can kind of show the client how far they've come. Sometimes they forget just how bad off it was. And sometimes it's such a gradual process. They're the last person to realize just how much they've changed. And so we find it really important to be able to show the client exactly how well they've done.
Well, sounds really interesting, good. And as with any biohack, once again, I want to remind our followers that it's all about holistic approach to our health and wellness. And of course, at Ultimate Wellness, we always emphasize the spirit, emotional, mind, body connection. And if you start addressing your mental health, brain optimization, of course, it needs to be holistic approach. And I know that NewMind also incorporate some metabolic support and even some supplements into functional training protocols, into brain training protocols. Can you please tell me more about your holistic approach? What exactly do you incorporate together with neurofeedback? And what science behind this integration and how it enhance neurofeedback outcomes?
Great question. We find it really important to take a holistic approach to things, even with the QEEG and the reports that we do. Again, we take a biopsychosocial approach to this.
Mm,
So we look at metabolics, cognitive emotional function, social interaction, cognitive performance, and we correlate that all together into a single report. And we do that not by trying to put a label on people, like a diagnostic label,
mhm,
depressed, anxiety, and so on. We're looking at symptoms purely because a lot of those labels kind of overlap and converge, and it causes some conflict. So we look directly at the symptoms and try to find the root cause of the symptoms and work on those directly. And we found we've gotten superior results by doing that, and we're
mhm,
able to take a look at the entire client, the entire person, and we're looking at, like you said, mind, body, and social interaction, and
Mhm.
fine tuning all of those together as a whole, rather than just trying to look at a label and fix a label, so to speak. So our
Yeah.
system also looks at suggested protocols, but also suggested supplements based off of the brainwave patterns based on some MRI research.
Do you suggest only supplements, or do you provide these supplements and sell supplements? I'm not
Uh,
sure.
Currently today, we suggest the type of
Mm,
supplements. We're
mm.
not providing them as of yet, but future plans to do that.
Yeah, I actually noticed that you mentioned a few times social interactions, social connections, and I also believe it's super important and for health optimization and longevity. Your tribe, your community, your family, and circle is super important. That's why we also emphasize here at Ultimate Wellness this community and. It's always good to have people around who support you on your health journey. I really believe it's super important.
Excellent.
Yeah, great. Well, I think this is a good time for you to show me dashboard.
Can you see my screen? Thereabouts?
Yeah, I see. Metabolic score, I like. So you have some score inside your system, some kind of score, and we want to improve this score.
That's right. So this is the first shot. So we're doing biopsychosocial assessments that are tied
Mm,
in the QEEG. This is the metabolic assessment. And so we're looking at different metabolic categories, and there's a score. These are all statistically verified, validated assessments. So it's not just a checklist. There's different
mm,
symptoms that the client will endorse with severity and frequency. Based
mhm,
on that, we're able to look at this metabolic assessment and give them a score. This
mhm.
is really important to find areas that may be causing their symptoms, but also could impede the progress of neurofeedback itself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to have some measurements, some metrics. Yeah, as I also already said, all biohackers, they understand that we need to measure progress.
Absolutely. It's very, very important metric to keep in view as you're going through the assessment and then also through any type of therapy. After the metabolics, we look at social interaction. It's another long self-assessment, and we're looking at how the person rates themselves and then also how they relate to a peak performer and then the normal population. So they get an
Mm,
idea of what, if they want to be a peak performer, what range they need to get into. So we're looking at anxiety, depression, interactivity, and avoidance, and there's different dimensions of that. How passive or assertive they are, how over competitive they are. These are really important behavioral dimensions to track, and so they can see one, where they're starting, how they interact with the world around them socially, and then how they improve those over time using neurofeedback. For example, interactive and avoidant. Being avoidant is a way of the brain actually changing. It starts to slow down and almost protects itself. And
mm,
so that's a way of it trying to essentially get into a space where it can heal itself some by
mm,
avoiding
mm.
and kind of isolating itself. And so we're able to see as your brain is changing, you're less avoidant and more interactive and becoming more social because your brain is starting to actually heal.
I like that you compare results to high performers and to average population because it's always not only about measurement but about the interpretation of results to what we compare. I like that you mentioned this.
That's right.
Depends, like if the interpretation based on average population of not always healthy people, or it's based on high performers. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So you want to look at high performers and
Mm,
see that's really the goal of where you want to be, not just to the normal population. So, for
yes.
example, even competitiveness on a high performer is lower than you might think. Being over competitive can actually lead to depression.
Yeah, because you're never satisfied with your results. If you're over competitive, it means like you're always achiever, you want to achieve more, and it's not always possible. So sometimes it makes you disappointed, and it's, yeah, and sad.
Yes. And sad, yes, less cooperative too. Yeah.
Mhm.
Then from there, we look at cognitive emotional function. We're able to assess these different areas. Again, everything is statistically normed. So these dark red areas for this person are areas that are they're at least one standard deviation above the norm, meaning they are really
Mhm.
struggling with these areas.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And
So
then we're
ideally, we want everything in the pink zone.
exactly, yeah, you got it,
Mm,
below this black line. All right, and we're able to show how that changes by comparing before and after
mm,
assessment, so you can see side by side
mm.
and show the client how they're changing.
Yeah, I see some improvements. 3 areas improved.
Yes,
Yeah,
very, very important to be able to show this to a person who's going through this.
I see he's still impulsive, but
Yes.
some other areas improved. Good,
Yeah,
good.
it
That
looks
is,
that one's going to be a tough one for this person, it looks like, yes.
yeah.
But anxiety, memory,
Mm,
attention, everything is really important. So that just means you know exactly kind of what's left to work on. Helps
mm,
you to really focus and to keep customizing your treatment to what the client needs at the time.
mhm. Well, what is next?
We also do a cognitive assessment battery. So we look at attention, different types of memory, list
Mhm,
acquisition, executive function, and we're able to take a baseline and show the person how they're improving on their cognitive performance as they're doing the neurofeedback. So you can actually show them and
mm,
empirically show how they're improving their cognitive performance. You
mhm.
mentioned some a little bit older people getting started a little later in life. This is really nice to be able to track cognitive performance as you get older and doing neurofeedback and to show how it's actually improving those metrics.
This dashboard can be seen by coach and by patient, by client, both of them. Yeah.
Exactly. From there, we do a custom progress tracker. So based on this cognitive and emotional function assessment, we're actually able to look at the top 16 different symptoms that we suggest to be tracked. And so you get this very specific list of symptoms to track. List is going to be different for every person. So this is a customized progress tracker. They'll complete this every 2 or 3 neurofeedback sessions. And then when they come back after the training, you can actually show them on a chart how these symptoms are improving individually.
It's interesting. You listed as a symptom judgment, for example, and some
Mhm.
other interesting symptoms. So, from your perspective of you identify judgment as a symptom.
Right, based on that cognitive emotional function.
Mhm.
It's one that you can pick from, and so it's a pick list. You'll want to pick maybe 5, 10 at most, but typically around 5 symptoms to track at a time. As one starts to get better, you can replace it with a different one.
These symptoms, such as judgment, anger, they just disappear after neurofeedback after some
So
time.
hopefully that would be that would be the perfect world. But
Yeah.
we're trying to get those down and reduce them, turn the volume down as much as possible. And so they rate
Mm,
themselves from a 1 to 10, and we watch that over time and hope that gets down to everyone's going to get angry sometimes, but emotional outbursts should be very very minimal. You should be try to get that down to a 0 or 1 if possible, meaning they're under control. But if you start off at a 10 and you're able to get it down to a 4 even, you're going to see big improvements in your life.
Yeah, so basically we are still human beings, and it's not like you propose suppress your emotions. It just helps to take under control emotions.
Exactly. If there's
Mm-hmm.
some type of traumatic event in your life that an emotional outburst is warranted or is a natural response, I mean that's normal in its life.
Mm-hmm.
But to have prevent emotional outbursts for things that don't require it or doesn't make sense, that's what we want to work. Okay, and then from there we actually take those assessments
Mm-hmm.
and we correlate them together into what we call a brain map report.
Mm-hmm.
And we have these big gauges. We make this really easy for you to read as a clinician or a coach, Two, to actually explain it to your client as well. It can get really easy to overwhelm them with questions. Typically, they have two questions: "What's wrong with me?" and "Can you help me?"
Yeah,
And
it's
if you
true.
yeah, and if they walk out of the door with a lot more questions than those two they came in with, it's not good for you, for the client, or for you with a potential paying client walking out. So we make everything really easy to read and explain. We have these big gauges and dials for them to see and you to explain. And then we correlate that cognitive emotional function assessment with the EEG. And so we're able to show the symptoms and if the client is reporting them and if we see those symptoms inside the EEG.
So to summarize, this report, how we see it now, it's based on history taking and their own assessment themselves. So they answer questions and they score themselves if they
That's right.
experience anger often or some other emotions. And then it's also based on QEEG mapping. And
That's right.
now on this picture, as we see it now, it's already a report which combines all parameters from their questions and from their mapping. This is all together already
Yeah,
here.
that's correct. Yep.
Mhm,
And so that makes it really powerful. You can see what they're reporting symptom-wise and
mhm,
what we see in the EEG.
mhm. But
And it's really
on EEG, there is some separate report as well.
yeah. So this is a really easy for you to explain to them
Yeah.
what we're seeing in the QEEG,
Mhm.
like focus, mood, and relaxation, and how that relates to what they're actually reporting.
Yeah, so the QEEG-based mapping itself, it's more complicated. It's more for coaches and those who can interpret. This report, which is a summarized report based on both approaches, on questions and on QEEG mapping, it's more simplified. But at the same time, if for any reason coach needs to have some more detailed protocol of QEEG mapping, they have it. They obviously
Oh,
have
that's
it.
right.
Mhm.
You nailed it there, Julia. This is basically a summarized interpretation of the more detailed report that I'll show you. But this is so you don't overwhelm the client
Mhm.
with too many technical details. This is just showing
Yeah.
what we're seeing and what's showing up. We even show areas where they're reporting symptoms, but we don't see it in the EEG, the QEEG. A lot of times that can be a result from the depression or anxiety.
Mhm.
For example, sometimes people self-diagnose themselves with ADD, and when we do the QEEG, we find that their anxiety is through the roof. And a lot of times, when you work on the anxiety, some of those ADD-like symptoms will subside. And this helps illustrate that to the client and explain to them how you
Mhm.
can help
Mhm.
and know what's
Yeah,
wrong with
yeah.
the
Totally
question.
makes sense. Totally makes sense. It's people are different, and some of them want to be more educated, and some of them don't want to be overwhelmed with those details because actually, yeah, the final destination is just to feel good and be happy
That's right.
and not obviously learn about all these parameters and what they mean, and just knowing
Yep.
how to balance everything and move yourself from this state of disease to state of ease. Yeah,
Like you
and the
said it
balance.
exactly. That's
Yeah.
right. So this answers the question is what's wrong with me and can you help me? Just in
Mhm.
one quick view, we have a much more detailed dashboard. You can see that social interaction assessment
Mhm.
correlating here, and there's a more expansive areas that we get into that you can show the client, later, or as a clinician or coach, you can dig in to yourself. But that initial view was a summarized view to help them just make it really easy and right to the point. Now, the QEEG, we actually do get into the head maps.
Mhm.
That's where you can see here. And we also simplify the ability to read these for the clinician or coach and then to explain it to the client. So instead of showing the client a bunch of head maps and kind of overwhelming them, also, this takes time for the clinician or coach to digest all this information and try to read it. We do that assessment for you with these easy to read graphs. And so
Mhm.
this way you can actually at a glance as a clinician or a coach read this person's QEEG and read the assessment without studying it and spending a lot of time trying to interpret this yourself. You can quickly, at a glance, read it and then also explain this to a client much simpler than trying to show them all these different head maps, these QEEG head maps, and try to explain to them what you see in there and have them try to see what you're seeing when this is their first time ever being exposed to this. That become very confusing and overwhelming to them. So this way, you can show them really quickly what's going on in their brain, and then as a clinician or a coach, you can then dig into the details with a single click.
Yeah, I like that you provide such a convenient dashboard and everything here together, and practitioner can keep data of all clients. It all sounds fantastic, really convenient. And now I have for just, I think, one important question. With all these beautiful, beautiful tools, how difficult it to become coach? Like, what background is required, and if some coach who is, let's say, nutritionist, dietitian, they want to incorporate in their practice neurofeedback, what they should do, where they start with your company? Is it some training?
Sure. We have been training and coaching clinicians and coaches to get into neurofeedback for 20 years now. So we really have the process down packed. If you have some type of coaching or mental health background, you can get into neurofeedback. And the process is pretty straightforward. We walk you through it. So once we get you up and running, you're still not on your own. You're being helped and you're getting learning opportunities 3 times a week. Okay, so this is the brain map. We also develop and suggest the research-backed protocols. So you're gonna know exactly how and where to train the brain. It's not a guesswork. We
Mm,
give you a list of supplements based
mm,
based on the brainwave patterns, and then finally we have this what you would call an AI generated narrative, but we've been doing AI before AI was cool. And so we have this really detailed narrative. It explains exactly what those brain maps mean, those patterns. And then also this really detailed narrative, again, based on this particular brainwave brain map. And so this is going to be different for every client, but this gives them a really comprehensive, detailed report information on their brain. So you don't have to write this as a clinician or a coach,
mm,
and this gives them something to take home to read later, so they're not overwhelmed and you're explaining this stuff in the clinic with them.
mhm.
So those are the assessments. Once they're in, here's the dashboard where you can see all of your clients training at once. So these charts here would be updating live and in real time, and you can it's really unlimited on the number of these that you can watch in real time.
So these cards of patients, each card is one patient.
That's right. Each one is their training plan. You can come in here and really quickly at a glance see how they're training so you can make sure they're being compliant. You can send them messages. You can see the results of their training sessions, and you can jump around the different sessions to see how they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you can go into their plans and see them in more detail. Again, you can jump around to different sessions, and here you can see exactly what their brain waves were doing during a training session.
Mm-hmm.
These are the grand averages, but we actually have simplified reading that. And so you can see this green line, the goal is for it to go as high as possible and these red lines to go as low as possible. Summarize these 3 lines down at the bottom for you, making it simpler to read. So we really strive to make the software as simple to read as possible and make it user-friendly and non-complex. So you as the clinician can read it easily, and then more, just as importantly, you can explain it to your client. Here you can see their mood and relaxation in real time during a session.